I had something I was going to say, but I can't remember what it was.
Feel free to interrupt me.
Like now?
Like that.
Okay. Well, until I can jog my memory. Oh, no. I know what it was. Hello, and welcome to the Interstate Gamers Podcast. I'm your host, Kevin, a.k.a. K-Slugs.
My name is Peter, a.k.a. Dio for Real, and I'm also your host.
So as you know, on this podcast, we rate and discuss some of our favorite video games. The goal here is to spark conversations and fun discussions about some of the video games that we have played in our lifetime and have played recently and whatnot, and perhaps even get a little bit critical about them. So if you've listened to this podcast before, you know what it's all about.
Yeah, we're trying to dig deep into why we like the games we like, why we don't like the games we don't like, although we haven't yet talked about one of those. We had one planned, it kind of fell through.
Yeah.
But maybe you can track that one down on eBay, I think.
Yeah, I plan to, not to disclose what game it was, but we had that in the plans, but that was right at the time we finished the last podcast and started I was moving. So that's kind of the reason behind the delay in this next podcast. I've been moving a lot of furniture in, moving my stuff in. I was homeless for a while while I was waiting for my new apartment.
Whoa.
And I started a new job and everything. So that transition kind of brought about the delay and things. And I also was kind of busy over the past few weeks. So it's only a week late. So
yeah, I'm sure that all of our fan are displeased.
Yeah. I'll make it up to all of our fan.
Dude, do you realize it's been a month since we last recorded?
Wait, really?
Yeah, it's been like 5 days short of a month. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, because we did the last podcast. We recorded it pretty early.
Yeah, we recorded on like the 25th or 27th of January, I think. I was looking at the Discord earlier, and that was our last interaction there. So, yeah, but I hope we're not rusty. I've been listening to many different podcasts, so I hope that I've been, learning by osmosis, keeping the skills fresh. So I'm excited. I'm excited for this new episode. Feels like we're coming back to something we haven't done in a while, and I'm pretty stoked.
Yeah. Well, moving on to the beer segment. Drum roll.
The famous beer segment.
My lovely girlfriend brought me some beer for this podcast, and it is the Round Table from True Vine Brewing Company, based out of Tyler, Texas.
Tyler, Texas.
So it's pretty local over here from where I'm from in these yonder parts, but it's pretty good, actually. It's an amber, so I do like my ambers.
I'm not sure that I've ever had too many ambers, actually.
Really?
Yeah, I don't think I have much of an opinion on them from lack of experience. But the beer that I got here in my hands is the Claymore Scottish Ale from local Denver brewing behemoth, if you will, the Great Divide Brewing Company. I like Scottish ales. I grew up sort of with one in Arizona during my college years, the Kilt Lifter from Four Peaks Brewing. So I got a taste for Scottish ale through that beer. And I remain a fan of Scottish ales. I'm enjoying this Claymore that I've got. It's in a bottle. It's only my second ever bottled beer I've drank on the podcast. So shout outs to bottles.
Shout outs.
But yeah, I'm enjoying it. And I'm actually sort of almost done with it, actually, because I've been here for a little while.
Oh, that sounds like you need to pull a Yeasty Boys, and we need to take a break so you can refill.
Yeah, refill with a different kind of beer, because this is the only one I had.
Yeah. I love the name of that beer, actually.
Yeah.
Claymore. That's pretty cool. If you're keeping up with your Interstate Gamers podcast trivia, you'll recognize that this is the first ever podcast that I have not had a Shiner beer for.
Oh, shit. What up?
So I'm breaking the mold. We're setting new barriers here, like new boundaries. We're ready to go. We're fresh, and I'm on a new computer. That's also something that I didn't tell you guys my previous computer that I was recording on crashed, so you could see the reason for the delays. But anywho, I believe we have a game to discuss today. Enough about all these technical difficulties and beer talk. What about the meat and potatoes that we all know and love?
Gotta get those potatoes.
Yeah.
It's the largest category in the food pyramid. Anyway, this game we got here, this is we've been reviewing pretty old games on the podcast. I think Mario Kart 64 was from like 94, 96 or something. Star Fox is from 97. Roller Coaster Tycoon is from 99. But for this game that we got today, we are jumping ahead into the future. The far future of 2004. And this game is a game for the Game Boy Advance. It's not the most famous Game Boy Advance game, so it's possible that some listeners will be hearing about it for the first time. But this game is Kirby and the Amazing Mirror.
Oh, shoot.
Why is it so amazing? I don't know. Shit.
Why is it so amazing, you ask? We have no idea. Actually, we do have amazing. It is amazing because it's like a portal, dude, to other worlds.
It is. And we'll talk about that in a somewhat literal sense, actually, here in a sec. This game was released in 2004, in October, in North America at least, on the Game Boy Advance. Like most, if not all, mainline Kirby games, is developed by your boys at HAL Laboratories. This game was also developed by Flagship, which I think was a somewhat short-lived developer that did some work on Kirby games. For some context, the Game Boy Advance itself came out in June of 2001. So this game came out about 3 years after the release of the system. So I guess a little late in the lifespan, you might say.
Mm-hmm.
And this is actually the second Kirby game on the Game Boy Advance. The first one was called Nightmare in Dreamland.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a remake of the first ever Kirby game, which was called Kirby's Dream Land. So this game actually reuses a lot of assets from the previous Game Boy Advance Kirby game. And that's something that I'll talk about a little bit. But it's a solid game. It's a fairly unique Kirby game, and we'll be discussing that as well shortly. Kirby's a character that I think our friend Kevin here has a pretty strong attachment to in some ways.
Yeah, I actually wrote that down in my notes. I main Kirby in every single Smash game.
Everyone.
You could say that I don't main him in Melee because I kind of switched to a Puff. Puff is such a more superior character than Kirby that Puff tends to shine out and get me more of the W's, but I still technically main Kirby in every single Smash game. And it started with Smash Bros. 64. I've played Return to Dreamland. Well, maybe it was Dreamland 3, I think. I can't remember. It was one of the Dreamlands. And I played that on the Wii U because I bought it on the Virtual Console. I beat that one. Honestly, that one wasn't too hard or whatever. But I've played Superstar, beat that one with James, our good friend James Young. And then this one. I've also beaten this one. So that's kind of my experience with Kirby. I don't have a huge, following of the Kirby series. I haven't played a ton of them, even though there's a ton of games out there. I don't have to get the next latest and greatest Kirby game. But Amazing Mirror was definitely by far my favorite Kirby game. So I'm excited to review this one. I've also dabbled in other ones like the 64 and the Wii U one, but I never finished them. So
yeah,
that's my experience.
My experience is sort of similar. I grew up actually renting Kirby Superstar somewhat frequently for the Super Nintendo, and I love that game. That's my favorite Kirby game, and I'll actually be making some comparisons between that one and this game because there are some natural comparisons to be made. I do have Kirby 64. I think it's a really cool game. It's not my favorite, but there are some really cool things going on there. Beat that one as well. I've got this game, Amazing Mirror. I've got Nightmare in Dreamland, which is the quote-unquote prequel to this game. I guess predecessor would be the better word. But anyway, the point is that Kevin and I, we're not Kirby experts, but we are Kirby fans. And do you want to start talking about the gameplay of Amazing Mirror?
Yeah, let's delve into the gameplay, shall we?
All right, after you.
Okay, for a Kirby game, I would say, compared to the other Kirby games I've played, this one is pretty challenging. I wouldn't say that it was quite as easy as the other ones felt. Although I will say when I was doing my retest run of this game, I was playing on a laptop, which was awful. Straight up awful. I don't recommend that.
You heathen.
I'm a heathen, but I couldn't find my OG copy. and I tried to purchase it on the Nintendo eShop, but sadly it wasn't there, but the trailer for it was there. So
Weird.
I could be missing something. So somebody at me on how I could get that for my DS if I can. If I can't, I hope that's something that they add later on. But anyway, yeah, it's definitely more challenging than a lot of the other Kirby games, whereas I think the enemies, they respawn when you leave the area a lot of times. Not every single enemy, but most of the enemies, if they get off screen and you come back, they respawn, which can end up like you randomly getting hurt and hit.
Yeah, I totally agree. That's always been kind of a nuisance.
Yeah, but I think it makes the game kind of challenging in some ways, but also annoying in others. So you could argue for or against that method, but I would say that I don't know if this was implemented in other Kirby games. I'm sure it was to an extent, but I felt like there was a lot of respawning in that game, which made it pretty challenging. Also, as a lot of Kirby games are, if you want 100% the game, you'd have to get certain powers to reach certain locations. And I thought all of those locations that were hidden were brilliantly placed. Another thing that I liked about this game was the navigation through the levels. You have a hub world, right? And then there are several mirrors that you can navigate through to get to different levels. And each level can either connect to different levels or back to the hub world or to a boss. There's several different paths you can go.
Right.
So for example, if you go and say one mirror and that mirror leads you to two different mirrors, which often happens in the hub world. So you go from the hub world to a different mirror, which kind of takes you to a level where you will typically have two options. And let's say you've been in the left mirror before and you've gone all the paths you can possibly go in that left mirror. That mirror will be just a solid, regular door. But if there's on the right door, if you haven't been to a certain kind of path within that door will shine and it'll have a shining star over it. And those shining stars will lead you to a new path or new destination that you haven't been. So I really liked that mechanic about the game, and I thought it was very intuitive.
Yeah, it complements the map system nicely as well, because there is a map system where you can pause and you can look around the world. You do have to obtain maps like in the Zelda games to really see the full details of where you are and where you can go.
Right.
But having that little built-in navigation of having the unexplored mirrors be highlighted, that is a huge help. And I'm glad that you pointed that out, because I think I actually forgot to write that in my notes.
Yeah. No, I really enjoyed that. Did I touch on water mobility?
I don't think you did, actually.
Okay. Yeah, that was one thing I wasn't too big of a fan of. Water mobility was pretty poor. I didn't enjoy it too much. The combat in the water, I know you could spit water at people.
Very effective.
Very effective. Still, it's only 4 directions, and I don't know. I just didn't enjoy water, the way they did water. I mean, I don't know how many different ways you could do water in a video game, but it was very stressful when I went into the water.
Yeah, and it's compounded by the fact that in this game, you lose your ability after getting hit once.
Yes.
And like if there's a ceiling above you when you're in the water, your ability star is going to float up to the top and you won't be able to get it, and you just lose your ability.
Yeah.
So it's very, very punishing when you're in the water. It's already pretty punishing to lose your ability after one hit anyway, but do that in the water and you've got yourself a problem.
Yeah, it's going to be hard to get it back because you can't inhale anything underwater, so except water.
At least there are some abilities you can use underwater, like sword and hammer, I think.
True.
But a lot of them, probably the majority of them, you can't use them in the water, so
right.
It's not a very fun time.
But yeah, overall, I thought it was like I said, very challenging. It left you wanting to explore the game to find new powers and new levels because you would encounter new and different powers as you go. And I guess, I'm not sure about this, but with each iteration of a Kirby game, you might encounter a new power that you haven't seen before. So that's always pretty exciting. At least for me, it was new experiencing those powers. Because I believe that was my first Kirby game. So as I'm playing, I'm learning about all these new and different powers and who I can absorb and who I can't. And it was very fun for me to go along the way and figure those things out. As much as explore all the different levels and find as much as I can. I absolutely love the calling mechanic, and I don't know how you feel about it, but I absolutely love that you can call your friends and find batteries and stuff like that to or battery power to call them for them to help, not only help you out but to give you health.
Yeah.
I thought that was really cool and really interesting that they implemented that.
If I can chime in about the calling, for those of you who are unfamiliar, in this game, the gimmick is that Kirby was split into 4 Kirbys by Dark Meta Knight, who's kind of like this evasive bad guy that you kind of run into every now and then. So throughout the game, you and your 3 other Kirbys are exploring the world, and they're controlled by computers unless you're doing multiplayer, which, makes sense. But you can call the other Kirbys using your cell phone, which Kirby has now. It's probably like a Motorola Razr or something, where you can call your fellow Kirbys and they come out and help you wherever you are. You can also call an Uber, basically, that takes you back to the main hub world, which is actually pretty helpful, and I do love that feature. Otherwise, my opinion, I think, differs from yours, in that I think that the whole 4 Kirby thing is pretty dang unnecessary. I do like the way that multiplayer makes use of that. I think this game, I've never played this game multiplayer, but I've seen a Let's Play, and I've imagined it longingly, and it seems really awesome. So it's cool that there's kind of a built-in way that it handles that from an in-game perspective. Like, oh, if Kirby's already split into 4, then your human friend can jump into 1, and that's cool, right?
Right.
But in single player, I think it's fairly stupid. There are some puzzles where you have to get all the Kirbys together to like help you inhale a huge block and move it out the way or something, and I just think it's kind of dumb. I don't know. I never got enjoyment out of the cell phone thing, personally.
Right.
But if you have 1 or 2 or 3 friends with you, then it seems really great.
Yeah. I guess, if I was ever in a pinch, those guys were 1, really good distractions, and 2, they could take out some enemies in the area. 3, and they could heal me by, ironically, I guess, I don't know what the method they're supposedly using to heal me with is, either like bird feeding or kissing, but
it's the smooches.
Yeah, those are the healing smooches, and sometimes they'll give you a extra life, so I found it pretty interesting. But yeah, the Uber, I like that reference. The Uber back to the hub world, that was pretty cool too.
Take me home.
Yeah. Yeah, I really enjoyed it, but to each their own. That's just part of my gameplay that I enjoyed. I also thought it was really cool, spoilers if you were planning on playing this game or haven't played this game, that you could eventually get Meta Knight's sword.
Yeah, that's the sickness. The
sickness. And the good kind of sickness. And to go along with that, the story for this game is, for a Kirby game, I feel like it's a pretty cool story. Like, it's
cool.
Badass. That's a good way to describe it. It's kind of like a badass Kirby game. I'm not going to lie. Like, a lot of them, Kirby kind of acts like a kid or a baby, but this one feels more adultish of a Kirby game, if that makes sense.
I'm not sure it does, but I'm going to have faith in you.
Okay. Maybe it's just me, but I don't know. The whole fact of Meta Knight and Dark Meta Knight and splitting up the mirrors, and you have all these different Kirbys, and I don't know. I found the story pretty cool for being as vague as it was. Meta Knight is always a really cool character, and the fact that you get a sword to fight Dark Meta Knight, you have that cool bond with Meta Knight. Like, yeah, I got you, homie. I know we've had our differences, but I got you, homie.
I love the relationship between Kirby and Meta Knight. It's really cool. It's like there appears to be, nothing really concrete there. Like, I'm sure there's some crazy backstory, but for those of us who don't know it, it's just like, oh, these guys seem like they had some beef, but they quelled it, and now they're cool. Now they're tight, and they like bar each other's swords. Like, that sounds cool.
Yeah.
That sounds pretty badass to me.
Yeah, right?
All right, I'm starting to see where we're coming from. I'm starting to warm up to the idea.
Yeah.
Badass Kirby.
Anyway, that about does it for my gameplay excerpts, but you got anything else to add to that?
Hell yeah. Actually, on the topic of badass Kirby, this isn't necessarily directly related to this game, but there's this funny trend that you can see. There are a couple of web pages that point this out, but if you compare the different box art of American Kirby games versus Japanese Kirby games, The most common change is that in the Japanese version, Kirby will be smiling and looking cute and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But in the North American box art, he'll have like some mean mug on. Like, he'll have angry eyebrows and a frown. And so there's like a TV tropes page about this or something, and it's called American Kirby is Hardcore. And it shows him like, and all the different box arts, like, side by side comparisons with Kirby looking really happy in Japan and then looking pissed off in America. Like, oh, I wonder what this says culturally.
Yeah.
Cute stuff isn't cool in America. I think that might be changing recently. I think this mainly held up kind of in this era, like the 2000s and like the late 90s probably, when things were supposed to be super cool and edgy and extreme.
Yeah. Super cool.
Super cool. Yeah, so a little bit of an aside there. I do have some points I want to expand on that you kind of touched in the gameplay section.
Expand dong.
So on the topic of navigating and the way that the world works, one of the reasons that this is a unique Kirby game is because I think at this point, I'm not sure about nowadays, but I think at this point in the mid 2000s, it was the first ever Kirby game where the entire game was a sort of open world, interconnected sort of affair. You had a little bit of that in Kirby Superstar, The Great Cave Offensive, which is the treasure hunting sub game. But this is the first Kirby game where the entire game is like that. And so for a little bit of context, it fits into the subgenre called Metroidvania, which I'm not sure if you're familiar with that term, Kevin.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of a subgenre where games take elements of the game franchise Metroid and also the game franchise Castlevania, hence Metroidvania. And games that are in this category, they're often sort of interconnected realms, like not necessarily linear. Often in these games, you unlock more of the world by getting new powers or abilities, which doesn't so much apply to this game. In this game, you can sort of get to most places with whatever means you have. Some areas, yeah, they're blocked off by certain abilities, but for the most part, it's just you explore everything. But this is the first Kirby game that really, made the whole game about that. And I think that although the gameplay of a Kirby game doesn't necessarily require a Metroidvania landscape, I think it's really fun. And I think that exploring the world and discovering new things and even venturing out with your little Kirby friends, if you like that, like that's all really cool. And the first time a Kirby game really did that to this extent. So I think that's really neat. Definitely one of my favorite things about this game.
Right. And correct me if I'm wrong, but some of the previous Kirby games, like the whatever Dreamland one that I beat, you could go from level to level in a hub world, but you'd have to unlock like level 1. You have to play level 1 to unlock level 2, and so on. They didn't interconnect, and that's to your point where you're saying this one really shined, was that they could interconnect between different levels.
Yeah, and most previous Kirby games, or at least the Dreamland series, I believe. Yeah, you had the hub world, but it was kind of a fake hub world because you just walked to the door for level 1, and that was level 1, and you beat it, and then you're back in the hub world, and you go so it's basically a menu, but in the game, which is actually pretty cool. I actually quite like it. I think Kirby might have been one of the first franchises to do that. I have no idea if that's true or not, but it was the first games I play that did something like that. And so the way that you navigate in this game, Amazing Mirror, it's kind of a natural evolution, I think, from the way that the Dreamland series used to do it.
Right.
The other thing I want to comment on is the abilities. You talked about how, in your experience, the different Kirby games kind of introduced new abilities and gave you new things to learn. I agree with that. I think that most Kirby games do make an effort to include 1 or 2 new abilities, and I think they're always hyped up by Nintendo, like, oh, in this game you can be a dog and you can dig holes, which actually was a pretty decent ability in one Kirby game. Or in this one you can become water Kirby and shoot water, and it's like, well, you can already do that, but now you can do it on land, so that's cool, and other stuff. But my main comment on abilities in this game, first of all, it's that they introduced the smash ability, which I guess ironically is the best ability in the game, in my opinion, considering that Kirby is one of the worst characters in Melee.
Yeah.
Which was the most recent Smash game when this game came out.
Right.
But my larger point is that the abilities, I think, feel pretty imbalanced in terms of some of them being way more fleshed out than other ones. There are a handful of abilities where you can do all sorts of different things with different inputs. For example, well, the Smash ability, for one, You can use his up B, you can use his down B, you can use his side B with different commands. And there are a couple abilities like that. One of them is the fighter ability, which is one of my favorites.
Oh, yeah.
But there are also a bunch of abilities where you like literally just press B and the same thing happens every time, and it feels just half-baked compared to the other ones.
Yeah.
In the predecessor to this game, the previous Game Boy Advance game, Nightmare in Dreamland, the abilities were all a little more simple. Like if you take the simplest abilities in this game, that's how almost all of them were in the previous game for the Game Boy Advance. So this marks an improvement in that regard. But in a game like Kirby Superstar, which is many years older than this game, all of the abilities were fleshed out. They all had multiple inputs. Everyone felt just as viable, so to speak, as the others. And in this game, it really doesn't feel like that. It feels like in this game, you want to have Fighter, or you want to have Smash, or maybe like, what's another fun one? I can't even think of any. Like, there's just that few that are that good.
Yeah.
And I don't know. It feels like it devalues the other abilities to me to have a couple that are just so much more fun, in my opinion.
Yeah. To that comment, or to that end, I remember from Superstar playing it with James, he'd often use like the electric static one where you run back and forth and you shoot electricity or whatever. And then the one in this game, you just sit there and it launches electricity around you. It's just like it just hovers around you and you don't do anything. You have to stand still. Like, why couldn't they have implemented something like that?
Exactly. It's a downgrade in a lot of respects.
Yeah. I kind of agree with you on that. I get your point.
Yeah. But at the end of the day, it's a Kirby game, and Kirby games are pretty inherently fun. Like, you get to, swallow up enemies and steal their powers, and the game controls really tightly as well. I find it to be a very responsive game. I love the physics. This is a really geeky thing to say, but I feel like the sense of gravity is really good in this game. I tend to not like floaty games, so that's a personal preference.
Right.
That's one of my reasons why Super Mario World is my favorite Mario game, because it's one of the least floaty ones. But at the end of the day, it is a Kirby game. Feels good. You get to kill cute enemies with fire and ice and swords. Oh, the sword ability. That's another good one. How could I forget?
Yeah, how could you?
I don't know, man. I'm sorry, Sword. But yeah. Although I know that I just levied a bunch of critiques at this game, but honestly, I'm a pretty big fan of the gameplay.
Right.
Do you want to get to our individual ratings?
Yeah. I came in at a hot, fresh 93 for the gameplay. We need to get a sound clip for that. Air horn sound clip.
I do have an air horn that I could, a virtual air horn I could bust out.
Oh, get it like a physical air horn. Never mind. Just go clip the mic.
I'm sure my neighbors would love that.
Yeah, same. But cool. What did you get?
I got a 4 out of 5, aka a hot, fresh 80.
Hot and fresh.
Yeah.
Ding, son.
If all the abilities were a little more fleshed out, like I mentioned, that alone could probably bump it up to a 5 for me, honestly.
Right. Okay. Well, I guess that does it. Okay, so moving on to aesthetics then. I'll just start with, we'll just discuss the visuals here. So in terms of the visuals, for a Kirby game, I thought it was pretty aesthetically pleasing. Although when you mentioned the point that they reused a lot of assets from the previous Game Boy Advance Kirby game, I guess that hinders my opinion of it a little bit.
Yeah.
I don't know exactly what it looked like, but I would say that it's still overall pretty extravagant, quite colorful, and still pleasing to the eye. The hub world was pretty cool looking. Everything seemed like looked pretty good in my opinion. Having not known that, at least they placed those assets well. I mean, sure, it takes out some creativity value of it, but I will say that it's still, in my opinion, is pretty aesthetically pleasing. But knowing that, I guess, does kind of affect my score of it. But overall, like I said, solid effort. Some of the moves for the powers looked pretty cool. Like the fighter ability. I like hitting them, and then like if you hit somebody, it's kind of like the jab in the new Super Smash Bros. Where like if you hit them with a jab, like it jabs until you let go of the jab button.
Yeah.
It's kind of like that effect. I really liked that kind of visual effects that they had on the moves and the stars bouncing around, and like I mentioned earlier, the shining star leading you to where you want to go and navigate. So I'd say overall a pretty solid effort.
I would say so as well. I was thinking about whether I would let it affect my score, the fact that a lot of the assets were copied over from the previous game, because I wasn't sure. I see the merit in creating new stuff for a new game, like that makes sense, right? But at the end of the day, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. That's another approach.
Right.
So I was kind of going back and forth, but I think what I landed on personally is that I would have liked to see a little more unique approach to the visuals. There are a lot of new elements in this game. Like, it's not like they copied literally everything. There are a bunch of new enemies, some new landscapes, but Kirby himself looks almost exactly the same most of the time. And since you're looking at Kirby all the time, that's when it's really noticeable that they're reusing stuff.
Yeah.
And a lot of the sound and some of the music even is reused as well. So that's kind of another thing, but we'll get to that in just a sec here. But I do think that the game is beautiful. I love especially the backgrounds and a lot of the levels. I think they're really well rendered. They're very artistic and very painterly is the word that we would use in the visual arts industry. Like, they look kind of handmade, and they probably were at some point. I'm sure that they had some really beautiful concept art for these backgrounds, but just everything's so vivid and colorful, and which is really what you expect from a Kirby game if you're at all familiar with them. But it's just such a nice world, and every area, there are 9 areas in the game, I believe, and every one of them is very visually distinct, and it helps you know where you are, right? It helps you navigate. If you're like, oh, I'm in a gross purple weird cave thing, I must be in World 3.
Right.
Or I'm in the stars. Oh, there's only one star level. It's level 9, so I must be in that world. And that just helps you. It really ties in nicely with the whole open world interconnected navigation system, I think.
Right. You make a really good case for that. I was pretty compelled. I was feeling pretty depressed about the reused assets, but now you've lifted my spirits again. But yeah, no, I mostly agree with you. I don't really have anything more to comment on. Do the visuals. I feel like they're pretty straightforward in the fact that it looks good. So,
yeah, I do have a couple little tiny nitpicks, but I think they're sort of amusing.
Okay.
The first one is that, and this is a direct comparison to previous Kirby games, including the Game Boy Advance one and also including Superstar. But one thing I liked in those games, and this is kind of a weird thing to like, but as you moved forward through the game, you would start seeing the same enemies because they can only design so many enemies, right? But they would palette swap them just for fun, just to like make them look cool and different. And in this game, they do not do that, and I actually miss it.
Yeah.
It's not really important. I'm not letting it affect my score. It's just something that I wanted to mention just because I think it's weird that I even liked it in the first place.
Yeah.
One thing that's kind of funny is that in Nightmare in Dreamland, the previous Game Boy Advance game, the first time I ever played that, I was borrowing it from a friend, and I started at the end of the game because I was playing on their save file. And by the time you get to the end of the game, all the enemies have been palette swapped, so they're not their usual colors. And then I thought, oh, I should probably start my own game. And I started my own game, and then all the enemies are their normal color, and I'm like, whoa, they're all different. Like, because I didn't know any better. I didn't know that they like did the palette swapping stuff.
Right.
So funny little tidbit there. The other little visual tidbit that I want to hint at is the health bar that shows up whenever you attack an enemy.
Mm-hmm.
I like the idea of enemies having different amounts of health, but I don't think that showing the health bar is really necessary except for the mini bosses and also like the large enemies. There are some enemies in the game that are not mini bosses, but they're larger than normal ones, and they take a fair number of hits. So it makes sense, I think, to show a health bar for those guys. Still probably not necessary, but it makes a little more sense, I think.
Don't they show it only for people who take multiple hits?
No, they show it for every enemy, but if you hit them in one hit, then usually it just goes from 100 to 0 right away, and it disappears really quickly.
Oh, I gotcha. I only notice it when it takes multiple hits, but I guess, that's the only time you're looking at it.
Yeah.
I didn't mind it too much, but it does help me know of like, okay, I still need to hit him, or how many more hits I got in this guy. Whereas most enemies in Kirby's games take 1 or 2 hits,
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons why I think it's not terribly necessary is because most enemies take 1 or 2 hits. A lot of them take 1 if you have like an ability that isn't shit. But one of the reasons I mentioned the health bar, I do find it a little distracting, but the main reason I mentioned it is for this next point, which is that it also displays the name of the enemy, which I really appreciate. I always enjoyed knowing the names of enemies in the games I would play just as trivia. But a lot of enemies in this game have really stupid names. So there's an enemy who looks like a little water drop, and its name is Droppy. There is an enemy that catches on fire to attack you, and that enemy is called Flamer. And this is one of my favorites, but there are 3 enemies with the word box in their name. One of them is like a fighting type dog, basically, so that one's called Boxer, which is actually kind of clever. But then there's a miniature version of it that's called Boxin', like boxing without the G. And then to round out the trifecta, there is an enemy that is a gift box that is evil and attacking you, and that one's called Boxy. So you have Boxin', Boxy, and Boxer.
Yeah, okay.
They're cool. There's an enemy that's like, the little star blocks that you find everywhere? There's an enemy that's a disguised one of those, and that one's called Blockin'.
Oh boy.
It's like, are you kidding me? Like, just, oh my God, it's just so lazy and like.
Yeah. I guess that's part of your critiques for content. It sounds like some content critiques there.
I guess it is, but like, I wouldn't care if the enemies had stupid names if it didn't show me to them constantly. With the health bar. Right.
Talking about all this kind of reminded me of an instance. It's not super relevant, but you were mentioning enemies and multiple hits and yada, yada, yada. When I called, this is kind of the downside of calling in your friends. I called in my little Kirby friends, and one had the explosive like bomb power. I don't know what the power is called.
Crash, I think.
Crash. Okay, he had that ability and immediately used it as soon as he got there. He just like blew everything up, and I was like, "Wait, no! Like I didn't need to hit some of that yet." It's like, dang it. It's just funny how the AI kind of works. They just kind of go crazy with that, but I do like the AI overall. But yeah, anyway, it just made me think of that.
Yeah. Cool story.
Yeah. So is that about does it for your visuals? I would say, or
I'm done.
Cool. I gave mine a 93, a hot, fresh 93. I'm still unaffected by the reuse of assets. Like you said, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Yeah. Well, as I said, I decided to let that affect my score because I think it's a little lazy. And so my visuals still got a good rating, though. Still a solid 4 out of 5.
Okay. Awesome. So that's moving on to audio. I thought it had some really catchy theme songs, which of course were reused over and over and over again from the Kirby series, and but still catchy to the point where you're humming the songs. So not bad. I loved the little nuanced sounds of the game, like calling your friends or the crunch of like a enemy hitting you or bomb or something like that. I really enjoyed that. The vacuum sound that it makes when you're sucking in things. There's our best Interstate Gamers impersonation of that sound. But yeah, no.
We did it.
Oh, and the star bouncing around the level I thought was pretty cool. I don't know if they did. You might know this. So the Game Boy Advance speakers, was there just one speaker? I can't remember.
There was one speaker, but it does have stereo output through the headphone jack.
Oh, okay. Okay. So could you tell like left and right?
On headphones you could, but it only had the one speaker on the actual device.
Okay. Well, at least they had that. That's pretty cool then, because like you would know where the star is, because sometimes you can lose track of your star. Yeah, I thought the star bouncing around, and especially if it, you can detect whether it's left or right, would be very useful. So those are kind of my takes on the game. Of course, you got your popular Kirby songs that are, like I said, very catchy.
Yeah, but some new themes as well.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I think a few of them.
See, like I said, it's my first Kirby game, so going, and I haven't played too many of the Kirby series games, but I do know some popular Kirby tunes, and those are the ones I know the most, so I kind of consider them to be like the standard, but it might not, in fact, be the standard on every account, but yeah.
Yeah. On the topic of the music itself, I think that as far as Kirby games go, I don't think this Kirby game has the best music. I think that Kirby Superstar, I hate to keep referring to Kirby Superstar, but I really do think it's that good. That game, and I think even Kirby 64 have some just more interesting tunes where like the melodies and the rhythms are just, they're more complex. There's a lot of crazy chord changes and key changes in a lot of those older Kirby songs. I say older, like compared to this game, it's maybe 6 or 8 years. It's not a huge difference. I do like the music in this game, but there are just Kirby games with better music, so the bar is just really high. And then regarding the sound effects, a lot of them were lifted from the previous Game Boy Advance Kirby game, which I find a little more forgivable than lifting a lot of the visuals. Like sound effects, I think most people don't really think about all that hard most of the time. But the sounds are really satisfying. So I especially see why they didn't replace some of them, because they still work really well. Like you said, the crunching of hitting or being hit by enemies, it's a very painful, like acute sounding sound. And a lot of sounds in this game share that kind of lo-fi, like crunchy aesthetic. But then you also have some sounds, for example, from the fighter ability, where you hit somebody with your Shoryuken, and it goes like a, stupid action movie sound, and it's really satisfying. It's just really fun to, you're punching this cute little dog enemy, it's like whoa, calm down, dude.
Yeah.
But that's fun. One little weird thing that I've always thought about this game is that I think that the bass guitar in the various soundtracks is always really, really loud, or like it just sounds super prominent. It's like boom, 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 and I was like, whoa. I don't know, just this isn't like a serious critique. I'm just kind of naming things that I find funny. But
yeah, you kind of.
Yeah, the bass player's going nuts in this game, especially compared to the previous one.
Yeah. He really is. Now that you mention it, I'm envisioning myself playing the game. It's something I've never noticed, but you being the musician that you are, and you have such attention to detail when it comes to a sound.
I'm not sure if is a detail, but there you go.
How did that go again?
You can rewind the podcast.
Okay. Now rewinding podcast. Anyway,
Peter Williams.
But yeah. So I don't really have anything else to add.
Yeah, me neither. My audio, once again, 3 in a row, 4 out of 5.
The triple. Oh, baby, a triple.
How about you, my man?
I got an 88.
Okay. A little lower,
Yeah.
but still very close to your previous scores, all things considered.
Right. So averaging those together, I think you get a 91. Yeah. 90.5, which, that rounds up.
It does.
So, yeah, that does it for aesthetics. My aesthetics overall is 91. Yours is obviously an 80.
Yep.
But moving on to content, I believe you had a lot of, if I remember correctly, you had a lot of things to say about the content of this game.
I'm not sure I have as much to say about the content as I did about maybe Star Fox 64, but I got some things to say.
Okay.
First of all, to go back to something I mentioned at the beginning of this cast, this entire game, the entire format, is kind of inspired or lifted in a way from the sub-game called Great Cave Offensive from Kirby Superstar, which I think is really cool because that, I think, is a lot of people's favorite part of Kirby Superstar. So they took that and built it into a whole game in a way that works really well, which I think is awesome. But the game, I think, is decently long. I feel like there's quite a bit of stuff to do. There are a lot of items to find. There's a lot of collectibles, actually, which is one of my next points. You can collect things like pieces of music that you can play in the sound player. Kirby games have always been really good about sound players, so I enjoy that, being the person that I am. But you can also collect little cans of spray paint that you can use to change the color of your Kirby, and I think that's really cool.
Yes.
I love that.
Oh, I love that.
And there's like 12 of them. There's so many, and they're really awesome.
Yes.
Some of the collectible items are not really all that cool. Like, I think it's weird that you have to collect different sheets or different sheet music pieces from different places. I think that's kind of weird, but I don't really care because at the end of the day, you find a cool spray can and you're like, oh shit, this is dope. Like now I can be black with red feet. That's cool. That's my favorite personally. But yeah, just it's really cool. Like it's a treasure hunt with purpose, I guess, because you do get stuff that, although it doesn't necessarily help you in the game, but yeah, it's cool. I like the spray paint. That's kind of my biggest comment on the content actually is that spray paint's really cool.
Yeah, that's actually one of my big ones. I did like to roll with my classic blue Kirby that I use in all of my Smash Bros games.
Yeah.
But I do like the being able to do that. Or I think I ran around with the grape Kirby for a little bit. Yeah, no, that was freaking awesome. And then the fact that you could collect things around the map was pretty cool. I didn't really, for those who love to 100% games and go for things like this is perfect for you. You could go all over the map just to get these certain items, and you'd have to, like James would do in his superstar runs, and he'd go all over the place to get certain powers and stuff like that. For those who love to do that for Kirby games, that is definitely, it leaves you wanting to 100% the game for sure. I think for a Kirby game, it has excellent content. In my personal opinion, the content doesn't really wow me, per se. I've never played a Kirby game to go get all of the, like you said, sheet music and stuff like that. Now, it was a cool addition. The content for me was exploring all of the different levels and getting all of the different powers, and basically getting that room where you could get all the different powers, and perhaps playing the Meta Knight battle over and over and over again.
Yeah.
But once, I got a pretty high percentage of the game. I do like the percentage meter that all the Kirby, I think most Kirby games have.
A lot of them do have it, yeah.
Of how much percentage of the game you've completed. That did leave me wanting to 100% the game. At least like that alone was like, oh, I gotta get 100% so I could show all my friends, right? So that was pretty cool. But in terms of the content itself, it doesn't really wow you, and you can't really do anything with the content per se, other than like play some sheet music and stuff like that. I guess as a kid, it didn't particularly wow me, other than the competitive aspect, which I guess they kind of got you there. But the multiplayer modes, there weren't many. There's like 3. Well, they're not multiplayer. It's like
the sub games.
Sub games. Yeah, it's not really multiplayer. But basically, there's one where you could press A faster than all the other computer Kirbys, or you could. I guess you could play with other people too.
You can, yeah.
Okay, that only makes sense. But you could eat some food on a plate faster than other Kirbys. There's 3 different levels of difficulty. I enjoyed the rock breaking game. I thought that was cool. I always tried to do that every once in a while once I got tired of the main storyline. I remember on my Game Boy Advance, I'd be like, I'll play that. That's pretty cool. It's challenging enough, and I like to see the ground break all the way down there. So that was pretty cool. And then my absolute favorite is the surfing one, where you jump off of the waves.
Yeah, that one's awesome.
And you go really fast and stuff like that. Yeah, I just played that before this podcast, and I was having a lot of fun with that. I was like, ooh, I want to play more. But yeah, so not the greatest of content, but still a decent content.
Yeah. Kirby games they do have a tradition of having mini games, but the focus has always been on the single player, or in this case, you can do it multiplayer, which I think extends the life of the content if you have a friend with you and you can approach the game however you want. And I think that flexibility increases the value of the content. But in general, Kirby games have always been about the gameplay and about the aesthetics, I think, more than some of the other games we've talked about. I think that aesthetics really are a super huge part of Kirby. And the way that you emphasize the aesthetics is by having all the different worlds, which we've talked about. And I think in the case of this game, the worlds are expansive enough that the content serves the aesthetics and vice versa. And I think that that's really where the game shines from a content perspective, more so than like the mini games, which I think they're pretty much there so that if you had a cartridge and your friend didn't, you could still link up and play a mini game. I think that's one of the main reasons why they had those in the first place.
Right.
But outside of that, the one thing I do want to mention that we haven't really covered is the final boss sequence in this game, which I think is actually quite cool. So, spoiler alert for Kirby and the Amazing Mirror, which came out in 2004. The whole game, you're defeating the bosses of each area, and they give you shards of the mirror. And once the mirror is complete, you go into the main big mirror, and that's when the final boss sequence begins. So you start off by fighting Dark Meta Knight using the sword that belonged to the real Meta Knight. He's still alive. He's just like injured or some shit. I don't know. He can't fight for some reason. And so you take Meta Knight's sword and you kill Dark Meta Knight, which is awesome. And then you fight the main big bad guy, which is like called Dark Mind or something. It's a fairly generic spooky demon whatever thing. But it has this big like glowing eyeball in its chest. And you have to defeat it 4 times, but each battle is fairly short. And you like have these little interludes where you navigate through a level before the next stage. And once you do that 4 times, then the true final form is revealed, where the big glowing eyeball in the chest becomes the entire boss, and it becomes really huge. And it's like actually kind of legitimately scary. It's a big flaming eyeball with a smaller eyeball inside of it, and like you're on this like rope or something and this vortex of red wind, and it's very creepy. And like Kirby games, sometimes they have really creepy final bosses. I'm not gonna lie, this isn't the only one.
Right, yeah.
They kind of have a tradition of that. But then the cool thing is you defeat that form, and that's when you like kind of win the game. But then after that, there's sort of a bonus mode where you're on a warp star and you're chasing the boss through the corridor. You're on your warp star and you shoot the boss, and it becomes like a little top-down shooting game, right?
Right.
Which is actually pretty fun. But then when you get the boss's health down to 0, the credits start rolling, but the boss isn't dead yet. It's still alive and kicking. And as the credits are rolling, the screen kind of dims, but you can still see what you're doing. So you can go around and keep shooting the boss, and then at that point, a little counter appears, and it keeps track of how many times you hit the boss.
Okay.
But it doesn't really matter, because like you don't get stuff for hitting the boss a certain number of times. It's purely for fun, which is all right. I think that's kind of cool. But what I was wondering is, if you're shooting the boss while the credits are running and you're like not really paying attention to the credits, I wonder if that cheapens the game, or cheapens the end of the game and makes it feel less like a cinematic ending. I don't know. Do you have any thoughts on that? You can say no, it's fine.
No. I was trying to come up with some BS answer, but no.
No.
Well, I think the idea here is a lot of people don't like to sit through credits. Kind of like Smash Bros, right? I think they did the same thing.
Well, not really, because in Smash Bros, you're interacting with the credits themselves. Like you are literally shooting the credits. And this one, you're not doing that.
Okay, yeah.
I think there's a difference. You're laughing, but I think there's a legitimate difference.
Okay, there is a legitimate difference, but in a broad spectrum of looking at things, it's something to do while the credits are rolling.
Yes.
And, being that it's Kirby and Smash Bros. And
Masahiro Sakurai.
Yeah, mashed potato samurai.
Yep.
He, given that he makes both of these games, or he was a developer for both of these games, it makes sense. But he wasn't the developer for Amazing Mirror, was he?
I do not know.
Something we ought to look up. For our fact checkers out there, let us know, was Mashed Potato Samurai or Masahiro Sakurai, I don't know how you say his first name, but was he the developer of that Kirby game? We could just easily look it up. But anyway, I think that's just the general consensus behind it. There's a lot of parallels with Kirby and Smash Bros, so it's kind of easy to draw those comparisons. But I get what you're saying at the same time. You're interacting with the credits as opposed to behind the scenes of the credits. But I think the purpose of it is generally the same, to keep you busy, because a lot of people would rather just turn the game off or reset it or not watch the credits at all.
Yeah, I guess I can feel that. It's just that I appreciate credits. I don't know. I guess that's the extent of it.
As a creator.
Yeah, as a creator, I appreciate credits.
Yeah. Cool. Well, does that do it for you on our content?
It does indeed, my friend.
Cool. Well, what did you get then?
Are you ready for this? Gave it a hot, fresh, solid, chocolate-filled 5 out of 5.
What? I did not see that coming.
Really? I guess I did like nitpick a lot there at the end, but
Yeah.
no, I like nitpicking.
Okay.
Call the cops on me, I guess, but yeah, this game
Okay.
it's got a lot to offer, I think, especially for a Kirby game. I think the content's really strong. 5 out of 5.
Okay. Well, I actually got an 84 on this.
Whoa,
section.
we were opposites.
Yeah. But I mean, like I said, doesn't really wow me with the content, but is overall solid. 84 is not a bad rating.
No.
And it kind of helps bring me to the score I was trying to get around of our overall score. If I'm gonna go ahead and get into our overall score.
Sounds good.
But my average score for all of these is about 89.333333333.
Oh, great.
Yeah. So that rounds to an 89. So
That I can live with.
yeah. But I was thinking around an 88 or 89 for this game, and I think my scores kind of reflect my opinions on that. So yeah.
Cool, man. Well, my score is actually quite similar with my 4, my 4, my 4, and my 5. Comes out to 17. I multiply that by 5, and I get an 85,
Ah, yeah, we are pretty similar.
which I think is the 4th game in a row that we're pretty similar on.
Yeah, I'm pretty proud of that fact. I mean, obviously we'll get one sooner or later that we're not going to have the same opinions on. But as a podcast about video games, it does help that we have similar views on video games. Slightly different here and there.
Yeah. You know, they say a house divided cannot stand.
Right. Somebody once said that. I'm not sure who.
I think Masahiro Sakurai once said that.
Mashed potato. Anyway, that brings our IG score to an 87 exactly.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, I'm pretty proud of that. I think that is a very accurate score. I wonder what the Metacritic score for The Amazing Mirror is. I actually normally I look that up.
Yeah, I think I did actually a week ago, and I'm surprised that you didn't, because normally that's your gig.
Yeah. Well, I'm looking it up right now.
I think it's actually in the mid 80s.
It's a solid 80.
Oh, okay, it's the low 80s. It is the 80,
Right.
the 180.
Yeah, get some Journey going on there. Don't stop. Anyway, so that does it for our rating for this game.
I have a fun fact about the Kirby series that I meant to say at the very beginning, but forgot.
Oh, what's that?
So, the very first ever Kirby game was Kirby's Dream Land, which was released for the Game Boy in '92. And in this game, Kirby is not pink, he is white. And also in this game, there are no copy abilities. You just, like, kill enemies other ways. It wasn't until the next game, Kirby's Adventure, for the Nintendo Entertainment System, came out in '93. That game was the first game where Kirby was pink, and also the first game where he had copy abilities.
Oh.
So I was kind of interested in that, actually, because I couldn't think offhand of many games where the sequel introduced some of the most distinctive parts of the game. Do you know what I'm saying? I feel like with Mario, for example, in the very first Mario game, you had Goombas, you had Koopas, you could jump and kill stuff, and you get mushrooms.
Right.
I'm not going to go into all the games I can think of because it would be too many, but yeah, pretty interesting to where the second Kirby game was the one that really set the stage for all the future ones.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, that is pretty interesting.
A good sophomore effort, as we say in the critic biz.
He did not have the sophomore slump.
No, not at all.
Well, cool. Thanks for that little tidbit there.
You're welcome, I guess. You didn't sound very happy about it.
Well, I actually, as soon as I was saying that, I thought I accidentally closed my browser, which had all my notes on it. So I was like, oh no. But I actually didn't. So.
Okay, good.
We're good.
We're living.
So that'll move us on to our favorite segment of the day.
Ooh, baby.
The quick attack section.
I wonder how many of our listener love the fact that we do that, the air horn thing.
Probably like one. One single user. And it's me.
1 out of 1.
Yeah, 1 out of 1. So today's words for the quick attack section. They're rootin' or tootin'.
Oh boy.
So are you rootin' or are you tootin' these things? So you ready to get started?
Ready to go.
All right, here we go. Fortnite Season 3 is coming out today, which today is February 22nd, 2018. And it seems poised for another good season. They've added a lot of features, a lot of guns, a lot of stuff, and the popularity is growing rapidly. I know we've talked about it before on a previous Quick Attack section, but are you rooting or are you tooting the success of this game?
I'm going to give more or less the same answer I gave last time, which is that if people are enjoying a game, I have to be happy for them, so I'm rooting.
Right.
It's just hard because I haven't personally played Fortnite or a similar game, so
yeah,
kind of looking in from the outside here.
Right. They've added so much to the game. If I'm just going to give my personal opinion, and right now it's my game of choice.
Ooh.
Aaron and I play it a lot. One of the guys down at the Yeasty Boys podcast.
Shouts to the Yeasty Boys podcast.
Yeah. Who I apparently I'm not on this podcast, but we won't mention that. We won't get into that. Anyway, the
Don't be
next
such a salty Sally.
Salty Sally. Anyway, Spyro Remastered is coming to the PlayStation 4 this year. Are you rooting or are you tooting?
Rootin', baby. Full disclosure, I've also never played a Spyro game, so...
Oh, really?
Yeah. Were they all on the PlayStation? Do you know?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, yeah, well, that explains it. I never had a PlayStation. Well, okay, I had a PlayStation, but it was my brother's, and we only had it for a short amount of time. But, so I'm just happy for everyone else, honestly.
Yeah, I've played it on the original PlayStation, but I never owned it. But it was always one of my favorite games to go over and play at people's houses. So I'm really excited to see that series coming back to life. So,
hey, here's some food for thought. Are you familiar with the recent Crash Bandicoot HD remaster?
I know that it exists.
Okay, well, I'm just going to briefly mention this, but a lot of fans of Crash Bandicoot were saying that the remaster kind of brought out some flaws in the original game design, like flaws that weren't really seen as flaws back then, but now they kind of are because games have improved.
Right.
And so I wonder if this Spyro remake or remaster would suffer a similar fate, where people would say, oh, it's not as great as we remember because things have changed now, or if it'll just hold up really well. I don't know. I've never played Spyro. I don't know how it'll hold up, but that's just something I'm interested in hearing moving forward.
Right. That's a good point. It's kind of your typical early 2000, late 90s platformer. No, I see your point there. We'll have to see the general how people view that, but
sure.
Good point. So Nintendo announces a new mobile video game, and guess what it is this time? I'm not even sure how they're going to do this. Mario Kart. You rooting or you tooting?
Whoa. Hold on. I need to think about this for a sec.
Blew your mind there.
Rooting. I mean, yeah, I want to see how they do it. I guess it's not that hard. Like, I've seen people play racing games on phones before. The idea of playing this is how much of an old man I am. The idea of playing games on phones is still weird to me. I've never really played a game. I haven't had great phones ever, but it still seems weird to me. But it's Mario Kart. I only so much can go wrong, I think.
Right. Okay. Lastly, Nintendo, also another Nintendo fact. We've got a lot of those. Nintendo is also planning to launch an online paid service for the Nintendo Switch. Are you rooting or are you tooting?
Do you mean an Xbox Live sort of scenario?
Yeah, it's a subscription of sorts.
Well, riddle me this first. Did they do that for the Wii U? Do you know?
They did not.
They did not.
I believe it was in the plans, but I don't know that it ever came to fruition. I believe the idea behind it is to, when you get free paid service, not a lot of people have a lot of motivation to put any emphasis or effort into it. That's why PlayStation and Xbox both have their subscriptions for their online service. But ideally, this makes their service a lot better. It gives them the ability to not only add more content or justify adding more content, but adding security to it as well, and perhaps useful features. However, I will say you still won't be able to communicate with other people through the console itself. You have to communicate with them through the app. So I'm not really sure how that's going to go. So you have to be hooked up to your phone while playing your Switch to chat with other people.
That's weird. Because I understand that I think Nintendo has a hang up about people potentially like using foul language at each other, you know?
Right.
Like, because they've always been like that. But if you can still communicate on an app that is, I assume, a Nintendo app, then they're still kind of doing that, right? Like,
right.
Maybe there's some other reason. Maybe you can get better functionality out of the cell phone or something. I don't know, but seems kind of weird.
Yeah.
Overall, I'll say tootin' for the sake of saying tootin'.
Right, because you haven't said tootin' yet.
Yeah.
You haven't been tootin' yet.
I can't be a positive Peter the whole time.
Yeah, positive Pete. Pistol Pete, that's what it is. That's what you are.
That's what they call me.
So that was all the ones that I had, but you had mentioned that you aren't very hype on mobile gaming, so I thought I would ask you rootin' or tootin' on this. Are you rootin' or are you tootin' virtual reality gaming?
Oh man, this is a whole like.
Just a quick answer.
Okay, quick answer, rootin'. There we go. Quick answer.
Okay.
Cool. But I just haven't been keeping up with it enough to know the technology and to know people's plans for it and all that stuff. But I mean, it seems cool. Like it seems like some future shit that I could get on board with. So.
Right. Okay. Well, cool. That about does it for the segment. So that's all I got.
Cool.
Well, that about does it for our podcast. Peter, where can people find us?
Oh, let me count the ways, because they are many and varied. So we're on Facebook at the Interstate Gamers. Search us on Facebook, whatever. We're there. We're hopping. We're on Twitter. We're at the IG_cast. Now, Kevin, I've actually been meaning to ask you, does the Twitter handle of the Interstate Gamers not fit?
Yeah, it did. It wouldn't let me do that.
Okay, I was just kind of wondering this whole time.
Yeah, so I had to do something shorter and more concise.
Right, that makes sense. So on Twitter, we are at the IG_cast. That is also our Reddit username if you want to see the one comment I made on our Reddit account where I was like promoting us to some other people. So there you go. You can find that if you want. You can email us at theinterstategamers@gmail.com. We'd love to hear your feedback. We'd love to hear any questions you might have about things we've talked about or things we haven't talked about. If you want to toss us a curveball, really just like any sort of message would be nice. We're desperate here, guys. Please. Anything. Actually, no, you can hit us up on Twitter too. We got Twitter.
Yeah, probably our most accessible form.
Yeah, Kevin is the real social media guru here.
Yeah.
Social media rock star ninja guru, whatever.
Yeah, I keep up with that stuff a lot.
Yeah. I think that covers it.
I did want to say, if you're wanting to look at in detail reviews that we've got going on, so far I've been working on a subdomain for our website. So you can find it at www. or http, whatever you want to do. But you can find it at games.theinterstategamers.review. It's a subdomain of our main website. You can find the list of all of our games and our ratings on there, as well as you can rate it yourself. You can rate it out of 5 stars. That's pretty cool. Wanted to do some interactivity with our audience a little bit. I plan to implement something in the near future, probably by the next episode, of some kind of interactivity that you guys can either send some stuff in, or we could figure out ways to get you guys involved. I've been looking for ways to do that. I think I've got some ideas, but so stay tuned for that. You can also find a spreadsheet of our ratings and our scores in a more detailed manner at, I think it's tinyurl.com/IG ratings. Am I right?
That's correct.
Sweet. You can find our in-depth scores for our past episodes and things like that. Don't forget to subscribe or follow. We'd love to hear some stuff from you guys. As Peter mentioned, we're definitely looking for fan mail.
Leave us reviews on iTunes as well.
Oh, yeah, do that.
So speaking of reviews, I do want to give some shout outs to podcasts that I've been listening to lately, trying to spread the love a little bit. One of them is the famous, the oft mentioned, the infallible Yeasty Boys, who we've referenced, I think, in probably every single episode so far. They're a great bunch. They are very entertaining. They come at you every Monday, most of the time. So if you're looking for a good time and want to hear some brew reviews and hear them answer some tasty cues, hit up the Yeasty Boys. Another podcast that I've been a fan of is For Pod's Sake, which actually was recommended to me by the Yeasty Boys. On For Pod's Sake, you have three great friends, three best friends, dare I say, who talk about different... they talk about a lot of pop culture stuff. Basically, the format is each of them brings a question to the table, and they all spend time discussing each other's questions. And they talk about some really interesting stuff, some stuff that I don't know about, that I've been learning about. I'm not caught up, so I don't know how good their new episodes are, but their old ones are definitely pretty good. So I can say that.
Right.
So Yeasty Boys podcast and For Pod's Sake. Clever name also, by the way. Both of them clever names, actually.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that actually is I love that name. But yeah, give them a follow, a listen, subscribe, whatever. Give those guys some support. Well, you got anything else for us?
No.
All right. Well, that's gonna wrap up the podcast then.
Yeah, thanks everyone for listening. We hope that you enjoyed this episode. We're sorry it's late, but we had some reasons.
Right.
We'll try to get back onto our bi-weekly schedule from this point. Hopefully it works out. But if it doesn't, just sit tight and we'll get some new stuff to your earballs shortly.
Yeah. All right, guys. We'll see you later.
Yeah. Get there on the perfect line, please.
I waited at the cinema too because I said, oh my God, this might be the end of the podcast.
And it is, for sure. All right, see you guys next time. Thanks so much.